Welcome. State and federal authorities in the United States have expressed grave concern over the potential loss of life caused by Hurricane Ian, which has left a trail of devastation in the U.S. state of Florida. This is Fort Myers, where Ian made landfall. The city's sheriff said he estimates casualties were in the hundreds, with thousands still waiting to be rescued. And this is a map of Fort Myers and the surrounding Lee County on Florida's west coast. Well, you can see it now from satellite imagery, the eye of the storm passing directly over the county. Here's how that looked from space. Images captured by the International Space Station. The hurricane's power reached the upper level of Category 4 with sustained winds of 241 kilometers per hour. Well, President Biden gave this statement about the scale of the damage.
It made landfall yesterday, and it is still moving across the state today. This could be the deadliest hurricane in Florida's history. The numbers are still unclear, but we're hearing early reports of what may be substantial loss of life.
More than 5,000 members of Florida's National Guard have now been mobilized by Governor Ron DeSantis, and he addressed the unprecedented nature of this weather event in his morning briefing.
The amount of water that's been rising and will likely continue to rise today, even as the storm is passing, is basically a 500-year flood event. But people should just understand this storm is having broad impacts across the state, and some of the flooding you're going to see in areas hundreds of miles from where this made landfall are going to set records, and that's going to obviously be things that that will need to be responded to.
And some Florida communities were particularly vulnerable to flooding and storm surges caused by the hurricane. If you have a look at this map, it shows the U.S. National Hurricane Center's storm surge warnings from this morning, centered on the communities of Cape Coral and Fort Myers. Cape Coral is a city of around 200,000 people. And as you can see, it's dominated by this continuous network of canals, making it extremely vulnerable. According to the local real estate agents, it has almost 400 miles of waterways. Well, here's what the city looked like from the ground. Yesterday, residents who had not evacuated Cape Coral were ordered to shelter in place, and they have since been stranded. Back up the coast in Fort Myers, these are hotel residents who have been waiting out the storm without power. One local official in the city described the devastation.
To say it's devastation would be a severe understatement. Just watching people's belongings and homes and things float by, it was a very tough scene to witness. We have lost most of our entertainment district, many businesses, many homes. They're starting the search and rescue efforts as we speak. If I could relay anything to anyone, please stay away.
Fort Myers councillor there, just you can hear the emotion in his voice, and just have a look at this. Have a listen. Oh! These are storm hunters, and they flew through the eye of this hurricane. And speaking after the flight, they said that this was the strongest storm they'd ever experienced.
I guess the two things that really stood out for me, just from the perspective of flying through the storm, number one was the amount of turbulence that we encountered. That was the most that I had ever seen in 6 years of doing this. And I've flown a lot of major hurricanes over the last few years: Irma, Maria, Harvey, Laura. All of these are big storms. Never seen that much turbulence before. And the other thing was lightning, just tons of lightning, especially in and around the eye wall of the storm, which is something that you really just don't see all that often.
Well, Ian was downgraded to a storm as it passed over Florida, and it's now reached the Atlantic, where it's expected to once again grow and gain hurricane status. It's expected to strike the North Carolina coast on Friday, and it's left massive destruction in its wake. Not only home floods, but also the damage has triggered house fires and major damage to infrastructure, with FEMA warning that the water could contain toxic chemicals and dangerous debris. They gave this message to those in need of rescue.
Yeah, we know, and we knew that there would be power outages, there would be cell phone outages, there would be other types of outages, and so people can call if they can call, and we're taking that information and prioritizing, but we don't need to wait for that. The teams know what the areas are, they're getting direction from the local officials, and they're going to search all of the areas that have had the hardest impact first to make sure nobody's trapped and we can get people to safety.
Well, authorities across the state are now preparing for a massive search and rescue operation. They face huge obstacles. This is in Naples, just south of Fort Myers, where fire and rescue teams had to contend with the flooding of their own station and their own emergency response vehicles. But the city fire and rescue have made progress. This is one team dramatically rescuing a woman who was trapped inside her submerged car. This hospital in the town of Charlotte had to be evacuated. The ground floor was flooded. Serious damage was done to its intensive care unit. And also areas of Florida less affected by the storm have had to provide assistance. These are the dog teams from Miami on Florida's east coast preparing to deploy to the west to assist search and rescue efforts.
They're going in. They're going into this area that has been so horribly, horribly hit. And they're going to bring rescue, they're going to bring hope, they're going to bring love.
Well, speaking in just the last half hour from a forward rescue centre in Charlotte, Governor Ron DeSantis paid tribute to all those involved in this recovery effort.
From the wee hours of the morning, there have been people that have descended on Southwest Florida to be able to offer assistance. And so we've seen a number of efforts on the barrier islands to bring people to safety.
Well, the storm has left many homes and businesses without power, such as this motel in Fort Myers. Over 2.5 million customers without power this morning. And this map from the tracking website Power Outages shows us where the blackouts are concentrated. Well, we spoke to one woman in Tampa who was still without electricity.
We knew that we would lose power. We live in an area that's tree-lined. So we lost power at 5:30 p.m. yesterday. We are still without power. There's debris in the yard and the neighborhood. We have trees down.
Well, our correspondent John Sudworth is in Orlando. He's been analysing the scale of the task ahead for authorities.
It's only now that the hurricane has passed through and the weather has cleared that they can begin to assess the damage here. You can see the boats, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth, piled up on top of each other here, and the harbour walls themselves pushed back by the force of the wind and waves and brought onto the shore. But the real focus of concern now is on the outlying communities, on islands cut off by collapsed bridges and causeways, where the authorities fear they could find even more devastation and potential loss of life.